I'm Doug Fern, and this is my take on music recording. Today, I have my guest Corrie Lynn Green in once again to talk about something that I think is applicable to so many musicians and probably studio people in general. And that is, how do you find the right balance between your musical ambitions and the rest of your life? Whether you have a job, a family, other obligations, whatever it might be. Because I know a lot of people struggle with this and try to find how they can fulfill all those obligations, in an equitable way. So, Corrie, thank you for coming to do this.
Thanks for having me.
To start off, just to give people a little background, talk about your life in music and life in general that all feeds into your struggle to balance all those things so people have the perspective from your point of view.
So I think like so many musicians, I am a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I'm a musician who is trying to do a lot of studio recording, and I also do a fair amount of live events. And I'm also a massage therapist as what I would call a regular job. I'm also a mom. So I have a lot going on, and it can be really difficult to balance all of the things in my life that are important to me.
And we should mention that your massage therapist is your own business as well. So
Yes.
It's not just a job you go to.
That's right.
You have to run it as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. What are the conflicts? Where do you find the problems that you need to surmount in order to make all those things work?
Yeah, so I think number one thing that I have that isn't always available to everyone is I have a lot of people supporting me. Not just fans and friends and family, but, a producer who supports me. I have a town who really puts a lot of effort into showing up to my live events. And I have people who are willing to do some of the managerial work for me to take a load off every once in a while. And that's really important for me to feel like I've got people I can kind of lean on. But I do have some balance issues, which I've had to over the years sort out. And one of those things is how much travel am I going to do as a musician and how many live shows am I going to do where I'm traveling away from my family. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and although I thought when she got older maybe there'd be more space for that, I actually find I need to be there more. I also have a busy massage business and practice, and I find if I'm bouncing around too much, then I'm not getting good consistency for my clients there. And of course, they can always go and find somebody who is more consistent. So I try to be really open and honest about what my schedule is going to be. And I also try to understand what my schedule is going to be like as quickly as possible, even trying to book out for a year in advance so that I know exactly where I'm going to be and I can schedule around that.
Yeah. Well, I know from the recording end of it, we schedule these sessions months and months in advance. I mean, not only for you, but also for the musicians we have to bring in.
Exactly.
And in addition to all that, you also have your live performing band.
Yes.
And you need rehearsals, and you need to keep them, up to speed on what you're doing and teaching them the new songs and all that.
Yeah, so balance can be a real challenge. Now, I think like most musicians, I'm really passionate about the music. If I could throw everything else away, like my job, or if I could throw away any other responsibilities that take away from the music, I probably would attempt to do more music and less of like the other job, for instance. But, as most musicians know, that's not always financially feasible until you can get ahead in the industry, which doesn't always happen. And that also can also happen sometimes and then not happen other times. So you might have some money coming in for a while and then it disappears. One thing that I'm pretty clear about at this point in the journey is I really don't do any shows for free. There used to be a time where, if a local venue wanted me to do something like that, I'd do a favor for them. But now my time is so valuable, I have to kind of be making something in order to take some time away from something else. So at my regular job, I'm now to a point where I basically have one full day where I'm not working there during the week. So I'm working 4 days a week there. And that allows me to do paperwork, research, studio recording, writing the music itself, and helps me kind of feel like I'm not totally drowning. And I can also set up appointments and regular life stuff as well on that day. But it took me a little while to get to the place where I could do that. I needed a little extra income coming in from the music business. And so when I do those live gigs, I do get paid enough to make it feel like I can balance that out a little bit.
Well, I think another important factor you haven't mentioned is that so often with musicians, they don't have support from their spouse.
Yes.
And I think you're really fortunate. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I am really, really, really fortunate in this area, not just with my spouse, but also with my child and other family members. Yeah, I have complete support in that way. And not just support, I actually have enthusiasm around my music and around my passion for music. And in fact, I have a person, my husband in my life, who has really pushed me to go even further. When I need to be out of town for an event, like I was just at Tucson Folk Festival, he does what it takes to make that happen, to help me get on the road. And then, of course, also takes care of our daughter. It would be really hard to do this if I didn't have a partner like that. I'm not even sure that I would be able to. I almost missed my flight home for my daughter's birthday when I was traveling, which felt like a real balance issue. I really wanted to be there. I was stuck where I was. I was really frustrated, and I was thinking, am I a musician or am I a mom? And the answer was, I'm a mom. And I wanted to get home and be there. But all the while, I knew that my husband was taking care of her. He was going to sort it out. He was probably going to make some excuses for me, and he was going to make it all okay. So I don't know how I'd really do it without that particular support. It's not just the emotional support, the support for the passion, having kind of your biggest fan live in the house with you, which helps you be more creative, and also, caretaking for our child, which is, I think one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I know. You're really lucky in that way.
I'm very lucky.
How about with the performing band? Tell us about how you manage that part of your music business.
Yeah, that can be really complicated as well because in total there are 5 of us in my touring band, and everybody in that band also has a regular job, and then they're trying to put as much into the music as possible. So we have to rehearse at least once a week, and when we have really big, important shows coming up, even more. We try to meet every Monday evening, so I'll work a full day at work, as will they, and then on Monday evening we'll all get together and we'll practice. We've had to be really streamlined in how we practice because, if anybody misses, that creates a big problem. If anybody's sick, if anybody has a conflict, and that can happen to all 5 of us. But we try to be as consistent as possible. When we get together, I actually write down what the date is, and I write down all the songs that we're practicing. I usually also have a list of all the songs that I want. Let's say in June, we have quite a lot of really important big gigs, but they're all within the same town, so we don't want it to get stale. So I have a huge list of all the songs I want to be able to do, and we're practicing as many as possible, and then I write which ones are happening on what date, and then I switch those around so that we're kind of always getting variety and making sure we're practicing all the songs so we can kind of be quick on our feet. it can be challenging for them to think about travel. Like as I'm expanding, I'm thinking, well, do I want to go to Europe? And does the band actually want to do that? When I'm in the studio recording situation, I'm recording with session musicians. And so they're not really interested in touring with me. So that's going to be probably the next frontier of figuring out, what does that balance look like? Do I find musicians where I'm going, if I'm going, let's say, to Europe or something like that? Or is there anybody in my current band that's going to be able to leave their job to actually make a commitment like that? And that's asking a lot. And you're probably only going to be breaking even when you tour like that. So it's really hard. I understand why musicians have a really hard time getting on the road, because you almost have to have a little base there, which is why we all have jobs. And you're usually coming home with very little in hand as well.
Well, I have friends who are, associated with major acts. And I can think of one guy who's the music director for a world famous star. And I talked to him about the same thing. The problems are the same.
Yep.
It's just the scale is different, because he could be out on the road for 6 months, 8 months, a year, and maybe only get home once or twice during that time. And he's got kids.
Yeah.
And fortunately, in his case, he has a wife who's extremely supportive, his biggest fan, and so they make it work. But, we tend to think of this as a problem for the struggling musician, but it's the same scenario at the highest levels.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit different.
Yeah, being a musician is such a unique thing to try to go do, I think, at any level. And at any level, you're asking the people around you to wait for you often. And and to support something that's, very dreamlike and doesn't always have kind of a solid platform. You don't even always know where you're going.
Well, Chuck Anderson, who I've had on the show a number of times, is just an amazing musician, teacher, and has done so many things throughout his long career. He had one bit of advice, which I'm going to repeat because I think it was really excellent advice. And that was, and this applies to most people, probably not you, but when he had a gig at night and he was leaving the house and he'd say, I have to leave now, I have to go play. And his advice was, never say that to somebody, particularly if they're not totally supportive. Say, I have to go work. Mm-hmm. Because
yes.
When we say play, it makes it sound like we are having fun, but it's frivolous.
Right.
Right? And this is a career.
Yes.
So that's...
It's great advice. There's so many important parts of that kind of getting that kind of advice too. I mean, I think that when I'm searching for the balance, I've had a lot of people, talk to me about things like that. Luckily, I feel like my husband and my family, they do see this as me trying to create something more for us. And they definitely don't see it as frivolous, and they definitely see it as work. And of course, we work really hard. We do get to have fun, and we do get some of the glory of being on stage or having our album come out, and that's all really shiny and glossy. But I think most musicians are, their heads are down and they're grinding away and they're trying to create art that may or may not ever be heard. And so it is a lot of hard work, and it's also a lot of rejection. You have to be really strong in that way. It's a lot of feeling like you're not going anywhere very fast. And so you have to always have your own back and always have your own self-confidence. So musicians are a really special breed. I was thinking while we were talking about balance, and I was thinking about when I almost couldn't get home from the Tucson Folk Festival. And then I was thinking about what it required for me to get home. And it was really kind of insane. I had to get another flight, not from Tucson, but from Phoenix. I had to get an Uber. I had to get to Phoenix. I had to get on a red eye, so stay up basically all night long to fly through the night. Luckily, was able to make it the next day to my daughter's birthday. But as soon as I arrived at 10:30 a.m., she was like, okay, now take me to the mall. And, and of course I did. I was so thankful to be there. That's the work I wanted to be doing. But of course I was dragging myself through the day and just sort of pretending like I was okay. And there's that too. I do feel like when I choose music, sometimes in other parts of my life, I'm having to push through, because I think there is a viewpoint of like, I've been doing something frivolous, or I've been doing something that's only fun, usually not coming from my family because they know how exhausted I can get or how much the travel impacts me. But other people who see just more of the shiny parts don't always see like, yeah, I'm exhausted, and I'm also now going to try to do my regular job, and I'm also going to try to be a good family member, and I'm also going to try to be a good community member. So you're really juggling a lot when you're doing this job.
Another thing that occurs to me is your songs can be very personal. I mean, even if they aren't your exact experiences,
Yeah.
They're pretty emotional.
Yes.
I'm curious how you handle performing in front of particularly your family. I mean, your extended family,
Yeah.
who may not really even know that you've got this other career, and they suddenly see you performing and singing these songs.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, that's been something that's been really interesting as I have sort of shifted into doing more music, and inviting my family to see what it is that I do. I think in every family, people think they know who you are. There's like a dynamic there, and maybe you're the middle child, and you have the reputation for being who you are, and then you grow up, and it's not always easy to watch someone grow up and change. And I think that has definitely occurred. And I think because I write about things that happened in my family and things that happened to me, mostly just from my perspective, sometimes as a songwriter, even making some stuff up, that has definitely, there's been some challenges for my family and growth too. Having them come see me on stage and being really vulnerable about what I feel is my perspective on something that they may not have realized, because I didn't necessarily need to talk to them about it. That's what songwriting is for me. That's the therapy. That's the truth, right? And so when I'm getting down into that truth, I have definitely had moments where I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to land. Thinking of my song Angel's Teeth in particular, which kind of talks about my evangelical upbringing and some rebellion that I had around that. How is that going to impact my parents, who are lovely people, but sort of brought me up in this way that challenged me? And, I think if they're really listening and they're really paying attention and they allow space for me to become this musician and this human who's trying to balance not just the career stuff, but the emotional parts of who I am, the evolution of who I am, for the most part, it's sort of come on the other side of like, yeah, okay, she's doing this and we're going to let her do this. It's also been really exciting, for them to see me doing something that they might not have been expecting. And I think that they enjoy the shiny parts of that too. Like they enjoy being able to cheer me on, or coming to a show and seeing that people in the audience are really enthusiastic. And sometimes there have been painful conversations on the other end of those concerts where they didn't know I had been feeling a certain way about something. And I'll either have to say, yeah, and I wrote it all out and I don't feel that way anymore, or that's not actually about me, or, right, and sort of give them like what's going on within a song. And that also happens with my fans, with people who are really listening to my words. It can feel like I'm writing so much depth and it's all about me, but there are always parts of me in every song, super personal parts, but there are also parts of others that I have known that I sort of weave into all of those stories.
Yeah, I think for a lot of music fans, they presume that the stories you're telling are your stories.
Yes.
And although your songs are almost always, if not completely, based on your experiences,
Yeah.
but you're a keen observer of the people around you, so you incorporate some of their stories into the songs too.
Yeah, I might take an emotion around something that I have experienced or something I've witnessed someone else experiencing that I know about. And I might weave those two things together and I become one in the song, But I think that's what makes it so effective for other people to hear it and say, oh, I recognize myself in this. I feel myself in this. My song Anxiety that's recently come out has really touched a lot of people in that way. And I am someone who's had to struggle a little bit with anxiety and with some really personal, deep hardship around that. So some of those things are my anxieties, but I also wrote to the bigger anxieties that I know other people, friends, family, that happens for them. And so it's all of us together, hopefully healing together when we hear something like that. I'm definitely healing when I sing it, and I'm definitely healing when I find out that other people understand it, because then we're not alone.
Right. Well, that song had an amazing response.
Yes.
And it's interesting, too, that audience is skewed much younger.
Yes.
Which is an interesting phenomenon.
Yes.
Which may be a commentary on our current society.
I think so. I think, we're living in tough times all around, no matter who you are, and tough perspectives. And we're all kind of walking through this world, and it can be a really hard place or a scary place. And we're active in our dramas and in our traumas in this life. And so it has been really interesting to listen to the response and get personal messages from people who are listening, and also from other musicians who are like, yeah, I never actually was able to write about that specific thing because it was too much, right? And people saying, wow, I didn't know other people felt this way. I mean, that's when you've got a zinger, right? And you've touched on something that you understand and feel, and that others understand and feel. And, hopefully it curbs loneliness.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful when you realize just how much influence you have on people.
Yeah.
And that brings us to your fans. And what I'd first like to have you talk about is social media, because that's such a big part of music promotion these days. So I know that you do almost all that yourself.
Yeah. So, I should have really touched on that, because when we talk about balance, that's a huge part of the work. I know people that aren't doing that part of the work. It's really hard to get yourself out in the world if you're not doing that. So I'm on almost all platforms right now. I have a huge Facebook presence. That's because of my age, and it's because of some of my fan base that have sort of been there since the beginning. And maybe because I've been building that for so long, because it's existed for so long. And then, of course, so I do post almost every day, especially when I'm really active, when I'm really trying to promote something. You'll see me on there more, because it picks the algorithms up, and I end up getting more, squeeze out of that juice, basically. And then Facebook, I have a regular page, I have a music page, and then I also have an Instagram where I'm active on Instagram, either doing a story or doing a post, or quite often now I try to create reels, which get a whole lot more activity. As most people who are on social media know, they're a little bit more easy access, and they get a lot more views. And you can do something like sing a song on there, or I've like showed the studio, or I've showed going onto a big stage, or I've showed the Tucson Folk Festival, or I've showed, Red Wing, or wherever I am. You kind of get the inside view of what's going on in a musician's life. So that can be really effective. I'm also on TikTok. I don't have a very big following on TikTok, but I haven't been on there as long. And all of these things, if you can get to a certain number, like on TikTok or on YouTube, which I'm really active on YouTube right now, that's where my music videos go. But all of these, once you get to a certain level of subscribers, you can kind of go live, and then you start, being able to perform live if you want to, or just talk to your audience if you want to. And so I would say I'm on at least 3 of those platforms every single day, posting something. And sometimes it can just be something that's unrelated. And sometimes, I try to keep it to be about music a lot of the time. Try not to put my family on there too much, because, they're not asking to have a public life, and that can get a little bit intense. So I try to protect my family and my friends a little bit, but yeah, I'm pumping it out as often as possible. And when I'm really trying to promote something, up to 3 times a day. And then you'll see your audience grow if you're doing that. But that requires a lot of work. I have found that not to be too hard personally. I know it can really weigh on some people, but I just try to do that stuff like, let's say we're sitting in the studio and you're setting up the microphones. You might think that I'm being oblivious on my phone, but really what I'm doing is I'm taking some sort of promotional piece and I'm pumping it out there. I'm also careful about what time I do that. It's really good to do it often at like 7 a.m. before my day gets started, and then it's out there all day for people to look at. But there are some statistics on what times of days that you can put things out that seem to get more traction. So Saturdays and Sundays are different than Monday through Friday. And so I'm really aware of all of those factors as well. And I just kind of sprinkle that throughout my day all the time.
You do that all yourself.
Yes, mostly, yes.
Yeah, which I think is the case for so many musicians.
Yes.
And I think, people, when they get to a level of success where they can hire people to do that.
Yes.
I suspect that it's probably still a similar amount of input from the artist, just to make sure that everything that goes out, meets their approval and is consistent with their brand, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I think it could be kind of a disaster if you don't have some input. So I'm not sure if that part of the work ever goes away. Either that or you trust someone completely and fully. But I have found it can be a little bit of a disaster to have somebody doing your social medias, because do they understand what your image is? Do they understand what you're trying to promote? Do they understand why? Do they write in the way that you write? Like, I have a real connection to the people that are listening to my music. I really want to talk to them. Might be a little wordier than like a social media person might do, but I feel like it keeps the connection really real, and I try to stay really real. Does this person understand like the timing of things, like when you put things out? And do they understand what you even want to look like? Now, that not even being vain, but there are pictures that I like of myself and pictures I wouldn't want to have out there in the world. And do you know which ones are which? Just do you understand me well enough to know which ones are which, so that I can just fully kind of give it away? And so far, I feel like keeping control of it is almost easier, because I understand exactly what it is that I want. I understand exactly what it is that I'm promoting, and I guess in some ways exactly what I'm doing when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think that that's an important thing for a lot of artists, is to establish their image, their brand, and be consistent with it. In your case, you've done a really good job of that, because you have a sense of style.
Yes.
In the way you dress, the way you appear.
Yes.
And you know exactly what's right and what's wrong.
Yes.
And that's something I think would be really hard to have somebody else do.
Yeah, and I mean, you can kind of see how imaging, like, I'm thinking of like certain like TV shows where you go on and you become a musician and then they start dressing you and things like that. But I think it is really important. I mean, you can just be yourself, whoever that is. And whatever quirky sense of style you have, hang on to that. And you can elevate that, and you can even make the quirkiest, weirdest, nerdiest thing super cool if it goes along with your music and who you are and what you're trying to represent. I feel really clear about what my style is, and I have definitely had people tell me to not wear something, or for all kinds of reasons. Maybe it's something that they wouldn't think would be a right style. Maybe they think there's a little ageism and I'm too old for it. Maybe they think my body isn't right for it. I try to ignore all of that stuff. When I look at an image, it's like art to me, an image of myself in a piece of clothing. Something that's unusual, something that grabs attention, something that's got color. I like to wear like a scarf, I mean, there are things like that, and it's me. You see it and it's me, and it might be a choice that makes you think or makes you feel creative. But it definitely don't let anyone kind of control that part of what my image is, but I'm also really clear on it. It's not wiggly at all. It's who I am, and it's what I represent in the music too. So it just kind of all streamlines together. It all makes sense.
Right. Well, a while ago we did a whole bunch of photos.
Yeah.
And I think there were 300 or maybe some more photos that we shot. And, in different circumstances, but it was all one photo session that we did. And when we got done, we went through all 300 of those. For a lot of people, that would be an ordeal.
Right.
But you have such a clear sense of your image that you could pick out, the 25 that were the ones you really liked, in no time.
Yeah.
I don't think we spent more than 20 minutes on that.
No, and I know exactly if I don't like it and exactly if I do like it. And I think that's a really important thing. I mean, hopefully you're understanding that about yourself and about the music you're creating, right? You know exactly where you're going. You have to pick a direction and start marching toward it because, there's a lot of other people that are trying to do the same thing that you're trying to do. So what makes you you, what makes you unique is really very important, I think.
Yeah. Well, how about your interaction with your fans? I mean, I'm thinking social media mostly, but it's also when you perform live.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you deal with fans.
Yeah, so I guess this feels like maybe it would be unique to me, but I guess there'll be people like me out there. I enjoy fan interaction. When I am at an event that's live, if someone has enjoyed what it is that I've done, and they come and tell me, well, that just makes my day, and that just makes me really happy. If I've touched someone, or someone becomes vulnerable and tells me their story or connects to a story I've told and comes up and lets me know, and I've definitely had that happen, people in tears, and, music makes me feel that way too. Really connected, really emotional to the person that is doing it. And so I value that, and I love that, and I really try to take the time to interact when I'm dealing with social media. Same thing. I really take the time to try to, if someone says something positive to me or is encouraging me, or I know they've been supporting me, I almost always try to respond. That feels really important to me. Now, I could see how that could get out of control and how that may not be possible once you get to a certain level. Sometimes I can't do that. I'm just too emotionally fried, or I've just been too busy. And sometimes I let that go, but I try to always kind of go back, and especially fans that I really know have been following me and commenting and watching. I mean, they're the reasons that you get anywhere. So I try to do that interaction. I have had to find a boundary around that when it comes to private messaging, when it comes to people liking me or following me that I don't know. At this point, I have to be a little bit more conscious of what's going on with private messages, because I don't always know who I'm talking to. I don't always know what the end result of that is going to be. And so I have started getting a little bit more cautious about it. And I've started, being a little less responsive privately, because it just feels like that can kind of take you down a rabbit hole. And I don't have time for that rabbit hole, number one, but I also think it can get a little dangerous and a little bit scary. And I think so there's some balance there too, where you realize like you don't know everybody on social media. And so, kind of set some boundaries. I set some boundaries with pictures with my family, set some boundaries with, private interaction off of the main thing.
Yeah, I'm always impressed that you pretty much answer everybody that makes a comment. And I think that sounds like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and a lot of people don't do it. And a lot of people have commented on that for me, like, is that okay? Like, can you keep up with that? I have no idea if I can keep up with that or not. But there is a real core group there. And, I do feel like that core group allowed me to understand my value. And, they're the ones that are buying the product, and they're the ones that are listening, and they're the ones that are communicating. And so for as long as I'm able, I will try. Now, I'm really good about balance. So if I start feeling overwhelmed, I have no problem just letting things lie, letting things go, or even saying, hey, I need a little time and a little space, because it's not to be personalized against anyone. It's not because, I don't want to do it or don't have the desire. But if I feel my energy level really dropping, I will definitely protect myself first. And I think that's really important in this business.
Sort of the strange thing about being a public figure in any field, I think, but especially music, and especially a singer-songwriter with songs that are so personal as yours, that people think they know you.
Yes.
They think that you're, a lot closer. They're a lot closer to you than, they really are.
Yes.
And I wonder how you handled that.
Yeah. I can have some empathy around that, because I'm also such a music fan. And I know that when I hear some types of music, it makes me feel like I understand exactly what that person has written and exactly why. I think we all tell ourselves, we all have a narrative, right? And the narrative is ours, right? It's what we've experienced and what we've been through. And songwriters are basically just trying to connect to that so that you can, maybe that story heals you or helps you grieve or whatever it is. And you feel like you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's hard to say if you do or if you don't. And I think, when people feel extra close to me, or if it even feels like they're talking to me in a way that is, like we're really close friends or really best friends, I think I just sort of take note of that, especially with fans. And I try to understand where they're coming from. I know wanting that connection with somebody who's singing feels good and feels really important. And I've had that experience in my life. I just, want to be protective of myself and my family. And because my time is so valuable, so limited, I have some really, really close friends that I don't get to see very often. And so I want to be able to take that energy and give it to those friends that have been there for 30 years or more, because I'm just not seeing them as much as I used to, when you're traveling and on the road and doing this stuff. And I want to make new connections, but I definitely want to put value in like where my husband is, where my daughter is, and where those close friends that have always been there, because you just know them, and you know them way before any of this happens, and you can trust them. And so establishing trust, actually, I think, is more challenging now. And I don't know if I have the answer for that, but you just don't always know what everyone's motivation is. And maybe you never do in life. But with music, it feels even more slippery in a way. And I also think there's a benefit there, which is that you can meet amazing people that you never would have met and hear stories that you never would have heard. And you're on the road and something happens, people take you into their home. People take care of you. I mean, it's an incredible thing. But where's the balance? Tucson is another great example. I met some people out there when I was out there 2 years ago, and, I'm fast friends with them. And when I go out there, I'm staying with them. They're taking me out to dinner. They're taking me to cool, places to visit. I would have never known them outside of music. So it's like, where do you find the trust? Where do you find the balance? I guess you really have to trust your instincts on that.
Well, is there anything else on this topic that you feel that you'd like to talk about?
I feel like there's probably something really big that I'm missing, but part of trying to gain balance is you don't have it all right everywhere all at the same time. Right now we're balancing this weekend of studio recording with podcast making. And, I'm getting ready to go into a season of a bunch of live events. And so for me, it's just one foot in front of the other. I know I'm in the struggle of balance, and I know sometimes I have to give more one place, take more away from something else. And I think that's probably going to go on for a long time because I love music enough to try to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a very strong person.
Yes.
You're the only person I know that hiked the entire Appalachian Trail.
That's right. That's right.
2,000, what is
Three.
it? 3,000 miles.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's 2,190 miles the year that I went, but 2003 was the year.
Okay, 2003. And you just didn't do it like on a weekend.
Right.
You did the whole thing at once.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that'll give people some sense of your commitment to doing things.
Yes.
Which I think is a vital part to success in anything.
Yes.
Having the ability to set a goal for yourself like that.
Yeah.
And accomplishing it.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are lots of times when you said, why am I doing this?
Yes, a lot. I said it a lot more than others, in fact.
But you did it.
Yes.
You made yourself do it. I think that attitude for anybody that wants to be successful is vital. They don't have to hike the Appalachian Trail, but, they have to have some commitment to whatever they're doing. Yes. To the point where they say, I'm going to do this, and then go out and do it.
I'm going to do it, and it's worth it, and it means that much to me, and I'm going to learn and learn and learn. And that's really, I think, why we're living, to learn. So I'm going to keep pushing myself in all of those ways because I want to know what's around the next corner. What if? That's the life of a musician.
Well, this has been great. I think for the working musician that's, because these days it's so difficult to establish yourself.
It's impossible.
With Spotify putting out 10,000 songs a day, it's like, how do you ever get noticed? Right. That's probably a topic for another discussion. Is
Indeed.
How you do the streaming services.
Yeah.
And that's another thing you do,
yes.
is to maintain all that.
Yeah, trying to get yourself on playlists, trying to get yourself on Spotify, trying to get your numbers up, in all those places using, I use DistroKids, but, you're just, it's always all the time. You're on.
Not for the faint of heart.
No. But I suspect anyone listening to this is probably already really strong and working toward this goal. So I would just say, I encourage you to keep going. I'm going to keep going, and I hope you get the support you need.
That's great. Thank you so much, Corrie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening, subscribing, and supporting this podcast. I always appreciate it. I enjoy hearing from people with their comments and suggestions. You can email me at dwfern@dwfern.com. This is my take on music recording. I'm Doug Fern. See you next time.
tickets and a place to go. Wheels on the ground and I'm ready to roll. No time to wonder if I'm on new road. Run around chasing dreams, and the only people who get it seems, are the other strung out strivers on the beat. I won't complicate my mind, put roadblocks on that yellow line. Well, I'm old enough to go get what is mine. Spend no time on looking back. All I need is a head on the track, and I'm running to it. That's where I'm at. You asked me to go get it done. I'm out the door and I'm on the run. I refuse to stay behind with anyone. Something special about getting old. Follow your heart to a pot of gold. Possessions mean nothing, that you're told. I won't complicate my mind, put roadblocks on that yellow line. Well, I'm old enough to go get what is mine. Spend no time on looking back. All I need is a head on the track, and I'm running to it. That's where I'm at. I won't need to tell my side. You get hurt, that's a part of life. I won't waller in it. I've got my pride. Victims come and victims go. Stories spread around the globe, but that will only hurt your chance to grow. I won't complicate my mind, put roadblocks on that yellow line. I'm old enough to go get what is mine. Spend no time on looking back. All I need is a head on the track, and I'm running to it. That's where I'm at. Silence is my only friend, no excuses needed then. I'm hungry like a lion in a den. Got no monkey on my back, forward march, no weight in my pack. I'm light as a feather, that's where I'm at. I won't complicate my mind, put roadblocks on that yellow line. Well, I'm old